Welcome back, everybody. It is January 1st of 2026, and this is episode 85 of What is on My Desk. Well, here we are, folks, back for another one of my monthly What is on My Desk update videos, and it's also a new year, 2026. I just had a pretty sketchy intro because I almost forgot what year it was. I started to say 2026 and second guessed myself, but yes, it is 2026. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all of you out there. I appreciate you here watching this channel, and yeah, here we are, another year, another trip around the sun. So we are going to swing over to the desk and take a quick look at the progress on the 4 kits. I do have a brief little update on some new things I got. It's nothing model related, but it's something I was hoping to get when I was out west and I managed to get. So we'll take a quick look at that. Then we'll take a quick look at the status on those 4 kits. It's going to be a bit of a shorter video. I'm not feeling the greatest right now. And yeah, so we'll let's get swung over. We'll take a quick look at all of that stuff and where we are. And as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. So here we are at the desk, take a quick look at the new products I have. Now, right now, while I'm filming this, it's only one new product. However, there are a few kits that are scheduled to be released throughout the month of December. So at this point, as I'm filming this particular segment, I don't know if I'm going to have more. So if there are more, they will follow along. If not, well, then we'll jump right into the progress on the kits. But first, let's take a look at this kit. And it is this, the 148 scale, ooh, dusty. 148 scale Eduard X-1, the Bell X-1. Now, this is a kit that I've been looking to get my hands on for a while. It's a relatively small kit, but it's relatively expensive. This particular boxing is somewhere in the neighborhood of about $45 US, which doesn't seem very expensive, but when you start factoring in exchange rates and shipping costs, getting this to Canada is pretty expensive. Now, excuse me, sorry about that, bit of a frog in my throat, had to have a drink. Anyways, this particular box I actually found for sale on a local Facebook model group. With shipping to my door, it was $52 Canadian. So I'm not going to complain about that at all. It was like $40 Canadian, which, like I said, these things on most online retailers are going from anywhere from $40 to $50 US plus shipping, and I got it for 40 Canadian, shipped to my door for 52. So not bad. This is the Proffer Pack boxing of this kit. For those who don't know Eduard model kits, their kits are in a range. Everything from, which I'm currently working on now, this particular boxing is the weekend edition. It's a basic kit with just one option for decals. And then you go into their regular line of kits where they'll have multiple decal options. The Proffer Pack edition tends to have extra bits and pieces of the Eduard aftermarket added to it. And then you go into the bigger kits like the Royal Class, where you have 2 or 3 kits in one box with multiple options and tons of aftermarket included. So this is kind of your mid-range kit, a basic kit with just a little bit of extra aftermarket added on. And when you factor in the price difference, getting this kit is actually a lot cheaper than buying all the individual components, which makes sense because Eduard can stick it all in one box and just send it out once instead of having multiple sets of packages and instructions. So let's take a quick look at this. I do probably will be building this sooner rather than later. I have another Airfix P51 kit along with the decals for Chuck Yeager's P51 Glamorous Glennis 2. And then this is, so Glamorous Glen 2, and then this is Glamorous Glennis. So you'll have kind of the P51 and the X1 together. I'll probably try to do it up on a little base where the X1 is sitting and have the P51 mounted above it, kind of it'll be an interesting little setup I want to do, and I can put that on display at places. So that's the vision. I'd like to probably get that done sooner rather than later, so we'll see if we get there. Box itself, really good. Like I said, this Profit Pack Edition is kit option 8079. It's still available on their site. The boxing is a little different. I think this is a slightly older boxing that I got. Yeah, this was 2016. So this was the older boxing. Then it went out of production. The last time I looked for it, it was out of production. Now it's showing back in stock at Eduard, but as I said, they're looking, it's effectively the same kit with just a different box. And like I said, they're asking, I think it was 45 US prior to shipping is what they're going for. So you can still find these out there if you look, but expect to pay for what you get. As I said, it's a pretty small kit. You get the little bit of plastic, your instructions, the decals, including an amendment, which we'll talk about in a bit, and then some of your aftermarket. So as always, let's start with the plastic and aftermarket, and then we'll move into the instructions and decals at the end. I'm not going to be on this kit for too long. I do plan on doing a full review just around the time I start building this. This is just a quick intro to the kit itself. Clear parts are in a nice separate bag. Very simple. There's just one. It's that greenhouse style canopy. I still don't quite understand how they were able to land this aircraft, considering what the visibility out the front was absolute garbage, but anyways, that's why they were test pilots. Plastic itself, super, super shiny, to be honest. Really high gloss plastic. I don't know. I think it's just a smooth mold. That's going to be a bit fun to try to prime. I'll have to figure that out because the paint's just going to want to peel off that. So I am going to have to give this a quick wash, try to clear up any oils, and then I will yeah, I have to give it a good coat of primer. So just to give you a scale of size, I mean, looking at the Albatross here, this is a World War I fighter compared to the size of the X-1. So the X-1 was a relatively, I mean, it depends on how you want to think of it, large and or small. It's probably about the size of, you know, a Spitfire. So it's a relative, I mean, most of it was all fuel tank, right? With the rocket engine, you got massive amounts of fuel tanks, but it's a little kind of, it's a lot bigger than you think it is. But then also, it's also a lot smaller than you think it is, depending on what your expectations are, I guess. So this sprue here, which I don't believe the sprues are labeled in any way, but we'll call it sprue 1. You get the 2 fuselage halves. You have your main gear doors, and then you have 2 options for elevators, as you did have 2 different elevator designs over the history of the aircraft. One had these kind of external hinge mounts with these aerodynamic fairings. The other one was flush. This is the earlier style. This is the later style. Now, one thing you do want to note, inside the wheel doors, there are like no details. It's just a flat kind of open box inside. Now, you aren't going to see in there very much. The gear was very much when it's in there and the down, you can't see in at all. The gear itself covers almost all of the openings, so not having any detail in there is no loss. You could detail it if you want, if you could find reference pictures. I don't think I've seen any of what it looks like inside the wheel bay, also probably why Eduard left it blank. But you could go through the effort of doing that and detailing it out, but you really aren't going to see it. You have enough detail on the inside of the gear doors that with the little bit of an angle you do see, you'll see the green. As long as you paint it all up and weather it, you're not going to notice. My kit, being a used kit, one of the wings has come off of the sprue, but that does allow you to get kind of a good look at it in terms of fit. Now, I don't know which wing this is, what side it is, but you can see when you put the wing on, the fit is pretty nice. Let's see if that makes a difference if I put it on this side. Oh, look at that. Okay, so they are controlled. You have different size tabs. So this wing can't fit on this side, so you have to put it on this side. That is a nice touch by Eduard. I will give them credit on that. Now, the fit isn't the greatest. There is a bit of a seam in there, so you will need to do a little bit of cleanup. I think just a quick application of Mr. Surfacer should hide the worst of that detail. I also haven't cleaned up this mating surface at all. It feels like there's a slight ridge. So a little bit of cleanup, and there's a bit of a mold seam in here. So just a bit of cleanup on the seams, that should fit together quite nice. But again, you get a good feel for the size of this plane. It's a relatively small little kit. Like I said, I think I'd like to have this with the wheels down, sitting like this, and then kind of have the Mustang mounted above it somehow. So from the right, you can look inside the cockpit and the Mustang's out of the way. But when you put it the other side, you'll see kind of the two planes together. I think that's a nice display option. Sprue 2, as I'm going to call it, includes both wings, and the wings are molded in one piece. There's no halves, so that's also nice. Being such a thin wing, not having a seam to clean up is a bonus. You've also got, let's see if I can figure what out I'm looking at here. So I'm going to say, I don't even know what that is. Something with to do with the cockpit, but don't know what. Main gear doors, the seat, the rocket exhaust, and the tail. You've got the nose gear door, nose gear, rudder pedals, not sure, control yoke maybe. Something with the seat, bulkhead, I think that's a side panel. Floor, I haven't looked at the instructions yet, so we'll do that in a second. As I said, we'll learn together. The cockpit floor, this is something with the cockpit, the instrument panel. Entry door, your wheels, which are molded in halves. And then you've got all of your instrumentation probes and whatnot, some other little doodads. I think that's part of the instrument panel. And then you've got your parts for your main gear. And as I said, the detail here on the main gear is nice. It's just the doors don't have a lot of detail in it. So that is it. That's the kit. It's not much. It's not a very large kit, which is also why, like I said, for the price, you got to get a good deal. It's kind of hard to justify spending, you know, $45 US on this plus shipping to my door when I can, something like this is definitely worth it. Now, it's going to be cool when it's done. Like I said, I've always had this, I've always wanted to build one. And I think it'd be cool to have, as I said, kind of a P-51 and the X-1 together, considering, you know, the legacy of Chuck Yeager. And I mean, it'd be really, even cooler to be able to do a bunch of his aircraft, but these are the two that'll be kind of the most famous and well-known. And I'm covered in resin dust. I got to vacuum. Okay, moving on. This being the Profit Pack kit, as I mentioned, you also get some photo etch, which includes seat belts, some of the instrument panel. Well, you get 3 options in instrument panels, most likely due to the evolution of the aircraft. So yeah, 3 different instrument panels, side panels, the rocket exhaust plate, the seat belts, and then I don't know what those are. There's some extra parts in here I'll have to look at. So lots of options here. A nice touch, some sort of an access panel. Again, I have to look at the instructions to know the details. You get resin wheels, which is a nice touch. It's funny, the wheels look bigger when they're sitting on the sprue, but then when you put them side by side, they're actually roughly the same size, which is impressive. The detail on the resin wheels obviously is much better. These have a smooth plastic, whereas these actually have a tire tread, and then the hub is much more detailed on the resin wheels. It'll be a huge update to the kit, have these resin wheels. So very happy to have that included. And then lastly, you have the masking, which isn't much. It's just the wheels and the cockpit section. So again, I'll take a look at the instructions. We'll go into more detail about that. So not a whole lot in the kit itself. It's a relatively simple, small kit. Instructions are these typical Eduard, beautiful instructions. I love their instructions, these little booklet styles, gloss paper, full color, makes building really, really easy. First page is pretty standard Eduard layout. You get your parts layouts, what not to use, as well as all your warnings and your color callouts, which come in Mr. Color and Guns Aqueous. Again, you'll need to do your conversion to your local color, whatever you end up, your local preferred color scheme is. So moving into the instructions itself. So yeah, some of the parts I wasn't sure of. The big, there's that big tall piece goes in behind the pilot seat. It's actually the back to the pilot seat. Then there's that little part I wasn't sure of. It's kind of a step to the side. I don't know exactly what is back there, but yeah. Seat pants, seat belts. Oh, I see. Those little tiny bits were actually part of the seatbelt, the little locking lever. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and then yes, that was the instrument panel, all the control stick, all of your PE. So there's parts here you have to shave off on the side panel there. Put the PE in place. Your rudder pedals. It's also interesting how he sits. He's in a very reclined position when he's flying this, probably just because of lack of space. It does mention weight in the nose. I don't know how much. Luckily, it'd be pretty easy to figure out just by taping. Once you can tape the fuselage together and tape the wings on, you can balance it and make sure you put some weight. And there's lots and lots of space for weight up in the nose, so it should not be an issue adding enough weight. It doesn't tell you how much, so you got to play around to figure that out. That's half the building. At the end of the first page, you've got the cockpit assembled and the fuselage halves put together. Also of note, they do call out interior green. Looking online, that does seem to be close to the color that it's supposed to be. Moving to the second half of the instructions, you're gluing on the wings, the tail. One thing to note is it does have the call outs for which tails to use. This one is wrong. This side is 5 and 7, and it tells you to use 7 for A and B and 5 for C and D. This box has the same, 7 and 5, even though it's parts 6 and 8. Luckily, the tails are very different with those proud hinges versus the flush hinges. So based off this side, you can then just match it. So even though it's an error in the instructions, it is relatively easy to solve. Then you've got your photo etch back here that goes on the rear fuselage for your rocket nozzles. Of note, there's no detail behind that. It's just open. If you wanted to make it look realistic, you could probably add a little like cone of some sort in there or something to give it some depth. But I think at that scale, it's so small, you're not really going to see much in there. But that's an option. Again, you've got your masking here, your wheels, plus your canopy. Down into this area, you're putting the instrument panel together. And again, you have the photo etch. So it tells you to clear off all of the molded on detail and then inserting the photo etch. It also shows you the various numbers and what you need for scheme. So whatever scheme you pick is the one you use. You have the handles for the interior of the door. And then here we're putting all that together. Instrument panel goes in. Oh, I see. Okay, so that's interesting to see. So the rudder pedals slip into a little slot inside the forward nose and holds it together. And then the instrument panel actually gets glued to the front of those rudder pedals. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So that gets done. Your door, you can be glued in or off. I would probably leave it off. Also of note is you have to paint it black because there's a rubber gasket due to the aircraft being pressurized. So just be aware of that when you're assembling everything, that you do need to make sure those details are in. Here you've got your nose wheel going in, pretty easy construction, interior green, silver wheel hubs, and then your gear door, and then the main gear going together as well. Relatively easy. You can see these just kind of tuck into the corners, glue together into a triangle, so it's really easy to positively locate. There's also a little drawing here showing you how everything lines up, so you can get all that glued together. Most likely you can probably glue it all together, paint it green, and then mask it off when you're doing the orange, but again, you'd have to play around a little bit to see how that works. And then all the doors all got glued together. So shouldn't be too hard to assemble. As I said, once it's all together, you're hiding a lot of that interior detail. And that's it. That's the assembly of the kit. You're moving on to paint schemes after that. Now there's 2 airframes you can do, 46062 and 46063. And then there's 2 schemes for each of the various airframe serial numbers. So this is 062. This is the airframe that Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in October of 47 as part of the U.S. Air Force. And then here you have the same airframe in 1950, and you can see they've modified it a little bit. They've painted some sections white, and I don't entirely know why. I know later on a lot of the aircraft went white because it helped dissipate heat, but this one's kind of interesting where parts of it are white and parts of it isn't, like just the top of one wing and the top of the tails, but the other wing isn't. So I don't know why it was painted that way, but that is, that's that. So you got two variations of Exit 62. October of 47, when they broke the sound barrier, and '50 later on in its life. This then was delivered to the Smithsonian in 1950. Next is 46063. This is the scheme from late 1946. So this would actually be part of when it was the United States Army Air Force. It wasn't the U.S. Air Force at this point. It became the U.S. Air Force in September of 1947. You can also tell because this has the red lines were added to the markings when it became the USAF in 47. So not having the red bars means it's pre-U.S. Air Force, it's U.S. Army Air Force. And yeah, this would be it. It says late 1946. So I'm assuming this was when they were first delivered and they were doing their test flights with them, their dry, their gliding runs and the early rocket firing runs. And it was September of 47 when they finally broke the sound barrier itself. So you can also tell this one has a standard pitot tubular. This one has kind of the red and white, which is kind of a prototype. But yeah, so that's always a cool variation to have the early one with the early roundels. And then it's the same airframe again, 46063, in October of 1947 at Edwards as part of the program. Now it's also weird, which I again, knowing that there's errors earlier in the instructions, I'm curious if there's errors here, because this is U.S. Air Force Muroc Dry Lake Bed, late 47. This is Edwards Air Force Base, late 47. So technically this and this existed at the same time. This was flown by the U.S. Air Force. This was flown by NACA, the National Advisory Committee on Aviation, the forerunner to NASA. So I'd have to really do the research to find out why there was one painted, one white and one orange at the same time, and why one was flown by the U.S. Air Force and one was flown by the NACA. So I'm not entirely sure the difference there, but I'm wondering if that date is wrong. And for anybody out there who knows more and wants to correct me, please correct me. So that's the instructions. Again, I'm not going to go too much. When I do the full-blown review of this kit, I will be zoomed in a lot closer for everyone to see a bit more. Decals are really, really nice. I'm not going to take them back out of this package. I've already taken them out once today when I was scanning them in for the website. But you do have lots of options. As I said, you have the pre-US Air Force and post-US Air Force, all of your stencils down here. Various different markings as those markings evolved between the earlier 6062 and the later 6062. All of that is included. There are decal options for your instruments if you don't use the photo etch. There's also two versions of the glamorous Glennis artwork. One is supposed to be the day, like the time he broke the sound barrier. The other one, when they, I guess the later version, and I don't know the difference. So I don't know why there's two different artworks and why there's a difference in painting one. It's hard to see. As I said, I'll do more when I do it, but the color red changes. It's even mentioned in the instructions. So I'll have to, again, do some research, figure out which one is the most accurate. I feel like they've done this research and there's a reason why it's included, but anyways. Lots of Bell Aircraft, NACA tail bands, all that fun stuff. So lots of cool options in there. There's also this addendum decal, and I can't figure out why, because there's two decal 23s included, and this looks exactly the same, and I don't know why we have three, because if you look at the instructions, there shouldn't be the need for three. There was only ever two on this airframe. This airframe doesn't have it. This airframe doesn't have it, and this airframe doesn't have it. So if there's ever only a need for two, and we have two, why is there a third? Anyways, like I said, there'll be a lot of it, like research if you really want to build this kit and get it accurate. do your research. I'm sure Eduard did. I've never had an issue with Eduard, but just do your research and be 100% sure that you're doing what you want to do. So anyways, that's the kit. That is the Eduard 1/48 scale X1. Like I said, I'm hoping sooner rather than later to get this built. I do want to have that little display set up, so keep your eyes out for that. On that note, let's jump right over. As I said, if I did get the other kits, those reviews will be next. Otherwise, we're going to jump into the progress of these kits. So I am back for another model review. Now, I literally just finished filming that other segment I just did on the X1, literally this morning. Finished that up, had lunch, went out to the hobby shop. I had to pick something up. Get there, take a look at the used shelf, and one of my must-have unicorn kits is sitting on their shelf, the used kits shelf. And I've been looking for this for, I want to say, somewhere near 2 to 3 years, hunting for this kit. Couldn't, excuse me, couldn't find one at a decent price if my life depended on it. And it's sitting on the shelf. And of course I have to spend the money because I've been wanting this for years. And I got this. This is the AMT 1/72nd scale KC 135 strato tanker, specifically the A model. And the reason why I need this particular kit is I have the 1/72nd scale B52 from Monogram, and I actually built it. It's my wife's model. I built it many, many years ago, actually, back when we were still dating. So I'm talking like early 2000s. And I built it for her, and she had it hanging in her room. And then when we moved into the apartment together, it came over with us, but it was too big to hang. And so I disassembled it and put it away. And I have always been meaning to finish it. And my plan is to do it in an early scheme. It's the Monogram D model, tall tail. I'd always planned to do it in an owl-clad bare metal with the white belly. And then I got the idea, if I get a KC 135, I could do like a formation. Now it's going to be big. These kits are not small, and I have no idea where this is going to live when I'm done. But my plan is to complete the kit, boom down, and run a wire through the inside of the KC 135, out the boom, and into the B52, so that it's connected as one kit, and the two of them can sit together. And then I can flex the wings on the B52 with some wire, put it all together, have it sitting on a stand, and have the two of them together on, like I said, a stand, living as one kit. That's the ultimate plan. Again, I have no idea where I'm putting this as a finished model. It's going to be way bigger than excuse me, I have space for, but that is the plan. So let's take a quick look at this particular kit. So as always, we're going to take a look at the plastic, and then we'll move on to the instructions and decals. Now, again, this kit is large. It is not a tiny kit. I am going to get rid of this elastic because these elastics have a habit of degrading and ruining the styrene. But yes, this is a large kit. You compare that, so you can imagine this with a B52 underneath. It is not going to be small. So I'm gonna have to really figure out a place to store this. I don't have nearly enough space down here in the basement. So I'll have to find a home for this before I can even start thinking of building this. But as I said, the plan is to have a wire running across the top of this, and then out the boom. You can see this is where the boom comes out. So the wire will run out that boom and then down into the B52. And then I can put some strengthening rods, like some strengthening bulkheads in here, and run like a brass tube through it. And that's where the wire will hit, so it has lots of support. And then it will run out here and then into the B-52. And same thing, I'll have strengthening bulkheads in the B-52 with a brass rod or brass tube, and then this wire will slide through both of those and just assemble up into one complete kit. I'm still kind of figuring out how all that's going to work. Just because it's going to be like you have to assemble it all as one piece. And I don't know how I'm going to put all that together and still finish the kit. So I might have to do some fun playing around with it to get it to work. Haven't gotten that far yet, so we'll figure that out eventually. But that is the ultimate plan. So as I said, this kit is large. These are the two fuselage halves. That does have a full interior detail. As you can also see, the cargo door can be designed to be opened and have the whole floor. I'm going to have that closed, just because it's going to be built with the wheels up, and I'm going to have all that interior structure going on. So I don't want to be able to see any of that. Here is the floor. So you can see here how something like that. There we go. And you can see how the floor fits in there quite nicely. Main wheel bays, and then you'll have again, you won't see any of that when I'm done with it, but the option is there. Like I said, you'll have the opening where you can look down inside. So you can look up, I should say, from underneath into the refueling port, but I'll build it all out and detail it. But then again, I'll have that wire coming up into an inner structure. Yeah, I'll probably do more with the B-52. It's gonna be easier to build the internal structure on the B-52. So I'll probably have it so that the B-52, if I can build this one right, this will just kind of slot into the B-52, and it'll be strong enough to support itself, and it shouldn't like fall over, because that'll be one pipe. And then in the B-52 I'll have a slot inside that, so that will slide down into the 52 and hold it, and then it should be strong enough once I build all the structure in the B-52 that this will literally just slot in and hold, and then the KC-135 will be removable from the B-52 final model when it's sitting there. And I think that's the way to do it, because then I can move this around as a single kit, and I can just slide this in and it'll support itself. So that's kind of the plan I'm going to go with. Anyways, I'm planning way ahead of the final kit, but this is the interior. Like I said, I'm going to build all of this up, detail it all. So the final kit, at least you won't see it, but you'll be able to see the pictures of the building process. Now, clear parts. I haven't looked at the instructions much at all, but you get all your cabin windows, your rear refueling area windows, as well as two cockpits. I'm not entirely sure why there's two. One has an overhead panel, the other doesn't. So I don't know why those are different. The rest of the kit comes in just a handful of little bags. I'm gonna get the box out of the way and put the fuselage and the floor back into it. As I did mention, like I said, all your tie down points are here. It's got a really detailed cockpit. You've got your seat stands, side consoles, rudder pedals, even the toilet in the lav area is included. And I know there is quite a bit of detail in this kit when you start getting down to it. So let's start with this bag. Like, whoever had this before didn't even open the bags. But you have in this bag some of your wings. Now the wings are a little different, and I'll show you in a little bit. So the center section, the inner sections, so the top wing is a complete wing. The bottom of the wing is built in two separate sections. But yeah, so the upper wing, really nice, engraved panel lines. We'll see how the fit is when we get to that point, but at least it's got nice engraved panel lines. It should take paint really, really nicely. And you've also got the engines, which are the hallmark with the A model engine. These old bathtub style engines versus the later R models, which were the high bypass. So Yeah, they include all the 4 front faces and the 4 exhaust pieces for the back. So again, beautifully molded, engraved panel lines, lots of cool detail on those. I'm gonna have to figure out decals for this because there's nobody that I can find makes the early decals that I want, but I'm thinking I can kind of scrounge and make it up. So we'll see when I get to that point. I'll open up this one next because this has the center wing section. So here you can see there's that center wing I was talking about, where the center wing section is one, then the upper wing starting from here out is a full piece, and then the lower wing is a separate piece. And we'll see how well that joint goes together, but it's also molded around the flap line, so hopefully the panel lines go together quite nice. And I think that's just to make the wing nice and strong because this center piece is one piece, so it has the strength to hold the wing. I'll have to see about droopiness because that wing will want to droop a little bit. So I might have to put some strengthening pieces in here. We'll see. Also, with it being flying, I might want to flex the wings a bit, similar to the B-52. So I'll play around with that. But again, really nice detail. Panel line, it's got the little intake here. Really nicely molded. The other thing you do get is a center wing spar, which is on this sprue right here. Also includes the back of the main landing gear bays, and here you've got your main landing gear, and there's some other bits and pieces for the landing gear. I believe that's the nose gear, and then you get some stuff from inside. There's a bulkhead. I believe that's the APU, and then here you get more, for example, the boarding ladder. I don't know what that is, maybe the tail pogo, not sure. This is the tunnel where the people go up and down. You also have 2 instrument panels. It makes me think that there is an instrument panel decal because you get one with molded instruments and one without, and it mirrors the canopy where the upper part, one of them has the overhead panel and the other one's flat. So I think you have the option of decaling, and you have 2 different instrument panels depending on that. You've got oxygen pads, or oxygen bottles I should say, for the boom operator. I'm assuming this is part of the boom operator area, and then you've got seats, pilot seats, and yokes. Here you've got the actual boom, the little pod. This is the little window area, and then you've got the actual boom itself. And again, like I said, if I plan it right, I'll have this in the extended position, and you can see here, that's that rod that I'm going to replace with wire because that fits. Oh, you know what? You even have a hose and drogue if you wanted to have the hose and drogue laying up. But I'm not going to use that. I'm going to be plugged into a B-52. But I'm going to replace that with a piece of wire. So the wire will actually just come out the bottom of this, to the bottom of the boom, and I don't have to modify it because it's already designed for something of that thickness. And I think I can make that work with, like I said, structural interior bits, that sticking out. If I don't go brass, if I go steel, that should be strong enough with some interior framework to hold that kit up completely, as long as that's deep enough to fit down into the fuselage of the B-52. So yeah, I should be able to make this work. Other than that, I'm not sure what these parts are. I'll have to do, I think that's the top of the tail. That looks like that spiky pitot tube thing on the top of the tail. I don't know what those are. That's clearly the area where the boom operator sits. And then these are the wings that come out the side of the boom for the flying boom. Here you've got your horizontal stabs, 2 separate parts. They go together. So put this away. Definitely a cool kit. This particular kit has been reboxed by Italeri recently. It was the one I was looking for, as they have the A model in a scheme similar to what I want. If I think of it, I'll put the picture up. It's all like aluminum with the day glow panels. And that's because that's the same scheme I wanted to do my B-52 in. Day glow, silver over white with the day glow panels. And I have the decals from that. And I think that'd be a really, really cool combination. So here we have more interior parts. That looks like the center of the main gear, maybe another gear bulkhead, some cockpit bulkheads. Don't have any idea what that is. Navigator's table maybe. Some more stuff here. nose wheel well. Wheels, which I won't have to use because I plan to do mine wheels up. And then here you've got the main door, the little access door, another tail spike. Not sure what that is. Some more door pieces. The other fun thing is it looks like this is not designed to be built with the gear up. You can tell that because this door is a slightly different design where like this should be a separate piece. So I'm gonna have to kind of play around with that a little bit and figure out how to make the doors closed. I'll have to make some out of sheet styrene and make it fit and do some sanding and whatnot. Luckily, having this center piece separate means I can glue all the doors in place and then sand and clean up any seams before I assemble everything, which is going to greatly help in that process. So let's take a quick look at instructions. 2 sets of instructions, a building guide and a painting guide. As usual, I'm not going to go too deep into this, as you've seen. I'm just going to keep this nice and simple. This is that sort of AMT standard instructions, which is so awkward to use. It's huge, it's big. Everything's kind of broken into little mini steps, but trying to scan this for my web page is not easy. So I'm going to have to figure out how to pull that off properly. So that it goes onto my website properly. I haven't even gotten that far yet, but anyways, it starts off at this sort of middle area where it shows all of the parts coming together, and it's broken down into all of these little separate building steps where you work your way through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So step 1 is the assembly of the cockpit, and that includes the center console. And there's where you got the option of either doing the instrument panel where you dry brush the gauge faces. On that note, what is the copyright of this kit? Because it does talk about doing dry brushing and all that fun stuff. So I have a feeling that this kit is a little bit newer than I think it is. I would guess this is probably from the mid to late 90s. If I had to guess. Decal sheet usually has a copyright on it, doesn't it? No. Interesting. I'm gonna have to... Does the box have a copyright? No. If I remember... Oh, no, never mind. 1992. Wow. So a little bit newer than I thought it was, but surprising that there's this much detail and this much information in a kit that, I mean, at the end of the day is 34 years old. So credit to AMT for putting out this type of kit with this kind of detail back in the day. So anyways, as I said, 2 options for instrument panels, one with the detail you can dry brush, one with the decal, yokes, pilot seats, and your 2 navigator seats. And there's where you put the access hatch that comes up inside, the crew entry chute, as they call it. I also like it because they give you the name for all of the parts. So anyways, that all goes together. Step 2 is all of the crew area behind the cockpit. So there's where you got your navigator station, and it gives you all your different color callouts. This is they call this the equipment stack / escape spoiler. So I believe that's what slides out into the windstream if anybody had to bail out to block the windstream, so you could fall clear of the fuselage before the slipstream take you out. So that's included in some other pieces here. Here is the electrical cabinet, which kind of also forms the wall around the toilet. And here you have the galley wall with the sink, and even how it tells you to point the toilet paper white. So that's a neat little touch. But anyways, all of that all goes together. And again, once you build all that up and paint it and weather it, it's going to look really nice. The floor, it tells you over here to paint it the top a light ghost gray and the bottom a flat gold gray. So I'll have to do some research, weather all that out. Back here, you've got your APU, your oxygen tanks, your rear bulkhead, and then the crew compartment all goes together. Other callouts, seat cushions, insignia red, overall light ghost gray. So yeah, you do some weathering. That'll definitely look good. And there's that little window that gets put in at the end for the boom operator to look out. Moving over to 4, it's just the nose gear, pretty easy to put together. Does tell you to put weight in here, approximately 24 grams. Again, considering this is an American company from the 1990s, 1992, it's in grams. They're using metric, which is approximately 7 pennies. which again is nice to have for those who might not have a home scale. So credit to AMT for making this kit as amazing as it is. There's also a bit of an assembly sequence, so make sure you follow everything properly and don't cross your wires and build it the wrong way. So that's always nice. Yeah, see, so step A says finish steps 1 through 7. Then if you're building it with the gear doors closed, cement these parts of the fuselage now. See steps 11 and 12. And then it tells you what to do other stuff after. So it does tell you, if building the landing gear in the lower position, cement the assembled nose gear well, cement the assembled floor, add 20 grams of weight, cement both fuselage halves together. So it's telling you to finish all these sub-assemblies, which is basically building up all this interior stuff, then glue all your gear doors in place, then assemble everything. So again, great job AMT for putting that step in there to give people those instructions for those who might not know. So down here, step 5 is the center gear well, your spar and all that other stuff get assembled together. And then step 6, you're doing just this little tiny sub-assembly of the boomer's window cover. And then you have the boom itself, and here's where the optional drogue hanging out is what you can do. So that's a nice touch. Then you flip it over to the backside and you have the final couple of steps. Step 8, where you're assembling your wing pieces and gluing them in place. Step 9 are the engines. It also points out your angles where the engines should be 90 degrees to the wing, not 90 degrees to the fuselage center line. So the engines are canted outwards slightly when they're mounted. Step 10, you're gluing together the tail. It also kind of tells you, because you've got some spindly parts, use a soft pillow to hold the model so you don't break things off. Again, neat touch. Step 11, you've got some antennas. Your door, cargo door goes in place if you're building it open. Same with the crew door. Again, those should all be put together. I've just come to a realization that that's actually, what? 111 cockpit roof. Am I missing something? Where's the cockpit? Wow. I just realized that there's a separate piece for the cockpit roof that's supposed to go over top of the canopy, and I don't recall seeing it anywhere in my parts breakdown, which is not a good sign, to be perfectly honest. I hope I'm not missing a piece. Oh no, I'm not missing a piece. I looked right past it earlier. See, this is why it's good to double check things. Yeah, that fits over top of that. Okay, I am good. I don't know how I missed that the first time when I went around talking about everything. I went right past the fact that the cockpit roof was sitting on that sprue. I'm sure the minute I just said I think I'm missing a piece, about 5 of you out there started screaming at me through this video that it was on the other sprue and that I missed it. Anyways, all that gets assembled. And then the last couple of steps here are all about the landing gear, and actually that's where your fueling lights go, and that's to guide the pilots in, which is a neat touch. And then, as I was sure, yeah, crew ladder and the tail pogo, if you decide to build it with the wheels down. So really, really good model. I have to give AMT, as I mentioned a couple of times now, credit for really doing a very nice, in-depth set of instructions. So moving on to the schemes, you get 2 different schemes. There's this one, which is the gunship gray over the light gray. I guess it's called the Shamu scheme. And dark gray over light gray. And you got a couple of different markings. This is for, excuse me, I don't know what unit this is for. Yeah, be nice to figure that out. It's got a little like castle tower type thing. I'm sure if I really looked at the decals I'd be able to make it out, but I don't see anything off the top of my head that points exactly what that is. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, not sure. I'm sure if I looked up online on scale mates, I'd get a good answer to what exactly this particular what unit this marking scheme is from. Moving to the back side, this is Eeyore. It has the Eeyore character from Winnie the Pooh on the nose. It's an overall light gray. It's got the sack bands in blue down the side of the fuselage. And then it's from Fairchild Air Force Base. It does have the markings on the tail as well as up here on the nose. And like I said, it's an overall light gray. This is the scheme I'm probably going to end up cannibalizing. I'll show you the decals. They're not the greatest, but they're not the worst. So you have your full color roundels, which is what I need. It's got the tail walk, because again, people really don't understand this, because the left side of the KC-135 tail has a walkway area on it, and it's because the tail was designed to fold down. And not a lot of people realize that the KC-135 tail was designed to fold down to fit hangars. And so when it was on its side, you could do inspections and you could walk on the tail, and that's why it has a walkway marking on it. So there are walkway markings on the top of the fuselage wing. I'd have to paint by hand. The tail includes it. The full vis markings are here. The yellow window around the window and the entry door, which is what I need for the silver one, as well as all your belly decals in yellow. 16. The only thing I don't have, so I probably could pull it off, the silver, paint it silver, do the day glow markings on it, and I probably have enough to do it. The only thing is the code won't be perfect. It won't be accurate with the code because I'm using the wrong code. And then I could probably modify these fuselage bands a little bit, whereas here they're supposed to like wrap around the fuselage. The other one had them around the nose, and I could probably cut it down to fit in here properly. So I'm probably going to end up doing that. I'm just going to cannibalize these decals to make the scheme I want and just live with it. But the hardest part's going to be building the two of them together, and I'll have to figure that out when I get to it. So anyways, that is that, and I have been showing you the decals here, so you see you've got, it's again not the best, but all the stencils you need to complete those two schemes and kind of cannibalize and put together another scheme depending on what you want. So that is that. Let's move on and take a look at, again, I don't suspect I'll be spending money on kits. I just spent way more money than I need to on kits. But if I did buy any more, that'll be next. Otherwise, let's jump over, take a look at the progress on my 4 kits. So here we are for a quick look at some new things. I'm not going to call them products. They're not for the models. I don't actually have anything new. I was really hoping, I was waiting on 2 kits to come out. One was the Kinetic Tutor. I still don't know what's happening with that. They promised it for December. There's still nothing. The local hobby shop there, went to Hobson. Bill said, don't hold your breath. It's probably going to be a while, if ever. So a little disappointed on that. The second one I really hope to get by the end of the year was the ICM Hampton. Now I know it's been out on some of the European sides, like Nigel has it, did a review at Nigel's Modeling Bench. I've seen a couple of other people posting on Reddit and social media in Europe having it already. It just hasn't hit the dock here in North America. So as soon as it shows up at the local hobby shop, I'm going to run out to Hobson. I want to pick one up ASAP. It is definitely on my list of things. I might even start building that soon. I think I can squeeze a Hampton onto my shelf over there beside the Lancaster. I want to do it as a 408 aircraft and have 2 408, the Lancaster Mark II as well as the Hampton side by side. So we'll see. That's my hope. So we'll get there. We'll see. Anyways, those I was hoping to get those. I didn't. However, I was out in Vancouver recently Went to a few hobby shops. Nothing struck me as amazing. A lot of cool kits and some decent prices, but nothing spectacular. And considering I'd have to fly home with it, nothing that caught my eye enough to deal with the hassle of flying home with it. But two things I did get are these. I paid for some stickers. I'm going to zoom you in here a little bit just so you can get a good look at them. The first one should give it away where they're from. So these are both from Harbor Air. This is their Twin Otter, and this is just kind of their generic float plane logo. I actually went to both their bases in Victoria and at Vancouver on the south side of the airport. In Victoria, they had nothing. They had no stickers available. This was the only aircraft type they had at the Vancouver south location. I wanted to get the whole fleet. I wanted to get the Beaver, the Otter, the Twin Otter, and then the Electric Beaver. Those were the 4 stickers they had, and I really would have enjoyed to get all of them, but unfortunately the Twin Otter was the only one they had. And then, as I said, I also got their float plane logo. Now, unfortunately, I forgot about these, and they were in the pocket of my sweater, and they went through the washing machine. So I am going to have to jam these in a book at some point to try to get them to flatten out. But I mean, I never really planned to attach these to anything. My plan with these were to always mount the stickers on a board, not even glue, just a little bit of double-sided tape, and tape these the backing to a board, and then sandwich them with a clear piece of acrylic with some wing nuts, so that this would be able to hang as like a display case, and I can easily peel these off and not ruin the stickers themselves. That's always been my plan. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet, but eventually, you know, that's what I like to do. So that, unfortunately, is all of the new products we have. So I also did not get as much done on the kits as I wanted. As I said, I was out in Vancouver. I left here on December 10th. So I finished a rotation, took some vacation, went out to Vancouver, came home, went right back to work, and then all of my free time has been spent updating the website. And you'll also have seen there's a video already out from the Canadian Museum of Flight. I have another one coming out later this month on the BC Aviation Museum and some other cool videos. So I've been spending a lot of time working on the websites and editing videos, not a lot of time sitting here at the desk. So I do have a little bit of content to show you, a little bit of progress, I should say, to show you. So let's hop over to that to take a look at the progress on the kits. Very close to stage 2 with these builds, so I'm pretty excited. So let's jump over and take a look at that. Okay, so here we are at the desk taking a look at the status on the 4 kits. Now, the past month I have spent the vast majority of my time on the B-24. The other kits got really close to being ready for paint, realized the B-24 was way behind, and I really wanted to get it done, so I spent most of my time working on that. But we'll start looking at the 3 kits first. We'll move on to the B-24 last. So first up is the DR1. I honestly haven't gone back to check the status from my previous video. I believe this is pretty much exactly as it was last time we looked at this. Everything is masked, primed, and ready to go for paint. Apologies, I do have a little bit of a runny nose that time of year. But yeah, so it's pretty much ready for paint. First thing I gotta do is paint white, and then I can start working on everything else. So that will be the next step, probably within a week, give or take. I'll start painting these, but this is all ready to go. The rest of the parts are all here. Elevators, ailerons, wing struts, cowling, rudder, all that fun stuff. Apologies. Yeah, so it's pretty much ready to go. I also have the engine is all painted. I will bring you in just a little tighter to get a good look at all this. So the engine is all ready to go, painted, assembled. Light weathering has been done. I'll do some more when it's all assembled onto the aircraft, but you get a good look of what that's going to look like. There you go. So it's a good view. So again, the firewall will be aluminum. Okay, I gotta blow my nose, so just give me a second. Yeah, so I said the firewall will be aluminum. Inside of the cowling is aluminum. The engine will have some basic weathering. It'll be pretty cool when it's all finished. So that's that. And I also have the little wing
like struts, kind of, not struts, skids, wing skids. These are what sit on the tip of the wing in case it tips over. These hit the ground before the wingtip does, and I also have the tail skid, all painted up and wood grained, ready to go. So next step is legitimately just paint. Albatross, exactly the same stage. Primed, I went ahead and did some pre-drilling in some places for rigging. I'm really gonna try to do a good job rigging this. So it's ready to go for rigging, but the next step of this is just painting. Yeah, red and blue have to go down first on this. And then I have all of the wing struts and everything over here ready to go, propeller. It's all ready for paint. I just gotta start painting. Upper wing, again, fully ready to go. Looking at the radiator that's embedded in the wing, I'm probably gonna paint the wing, then mask this off, and then paint that aluminum. I think that's the way I'm gonna go. But we'll, I might have to do some touch-ups by hand, but that's the plan. Moving on to the Dash 8, once again, ready for paint. I also have it not mounted, but I'll go a little bit wider. Ready to go for paint. It's the base has been prepped. Everything's only sanding and staining and all that kind of stuff, but I have it more or less sitting on its finished base, and it's ready to go for paint. I've done all of the filling that needs to be done. The wing flaps all have Mr. Surfacer done. Everything's cleaned up. Everything's pretty much ready to go. I've got the horizontal stabs over here ready to go, be painted. So the first thing on this, the whole airframe is getting painted white. Then I'll have to mask off and paint the blue tail, and then mask off and paint the gray belly. So that's all gonna come up as we go. But again, next step is painting white. So you can see how much I need to paint white on all of these kits. The DR1, the Dash 8, and obviously the B24, which is what we're gonna look at next. And then you can see really how much work I've had done on this in the last month. All the masking is done, all the seams are cleaned up, and everything has a coat of primer. I have the stub wings glued on. They've been trimmed back. I required a little bit of trimming on those because they are oversized. And they are still slightly oversized, but not enough that the average person is gonna tell. But when I put the wings in, the propeller would hit the wing. So it was intruding into the propeller arc. So I had to trim them back. And it also made it look a little bit more realistic, which I'm happy with. So overall, I'm not complaining about that. It worked out, but they are slightly oversized for what I need to do. But as you can see, this is pretty much ready to go for paint. The next step is white. The entire belly all the way up to effectively the top of the wing opening here is all painted white. And white is a very hard color to paint. So it's gonna take probably a day off and on of just misting the white paint on it until I'm gonna be happy with how it's gonna look. So that's gonna come up. The wings I have buried in the box. Wings are ready to go. All the seams on the side of the engines have been cleaned up and primed, ready to go. Paint, just gotta paint the bottom white. So that's all ready. On my live stream last night, I actually did the live stream on this. I'm actually filming this the morning of the 31st. Last night I did the live stream of this, and I didn't do much on the plane itself. I mostly prepped off-site. So I got a lot of this stuff cleaned up. The bomb doors are all cleaned up, ready for paint. They will be painted soon. The gears, I double checked, they're gonna be painted. I gotta double check what color the landing gear are, if they're white or aluminum. I also got the wheels assembled. They still need to be sanded down, and I got the top turret done up. It's going to be painted it's going to get painted black, and then I'll pick up the details, but it's going to live, or maybe it's green. I'll have to see. Again, do some reference checks, but it'll get painted up and mounted on here at some point. But luckily I can paint all of this pretty much the way it is. I think I'm just going to do it black, just get it out of the way, but it can be painted up, weathered. The tail turret has been painted black, weathered. I've also clear coated the perspex. It's going to need to be assembled. This is going to be a real pain of a piece to put together. Nothing really wants to fit right. It's a pretty, the shape of the molding of the turret is round, whereas the opening in the back of the B24 is more of an oval shape, and then the clear piece is a teardrop. So all three pieces are different shapes. So it's going to take quite a bit of finagling to get that to work. I think I'm just going to super glue 3 points on the turret, the clear parts, and then go around with white glue and sanding and try to get it to blend, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll slide into the tail turret. So that's got a bit of work to go on it, but I'll deal with that later. That's about the status of these kits. I don't have a whole lot more. As I said, the next step is going to be painting. So by the time you come back next month, I should have a whole bunch of painting done on these. So that's going to be fun. Oh, torpedoes. So I did get the wood graining done. I'll zoom you back in a little bit on these. I did get the wood graining done on the torpedoes. So it has the collar on the nose and extra wooden fins that get installed. On the back, those have been wood grained. You can see here how they will fit over the body of the torpedo. Like that. And then this glues on the front, and then I'll have to paint basically the body of this and everything up to here, and then the tip and the nose will all be painted black. And then I'll weather it all and paint the aluminum strips on the wood, and it should look really, really good when it's finished. But yeah, that's done. The second one I did on the live stream last night, so it's half done. It's going to take a couple of days for that to dry, and I'll have to come back into the other half, but that will also need to be done. So yeah, progress has been made. The next step's painting. I got to get the wings and the fuselage painted white, then I can get reset for the camo, and then from there I can start picking away at all this little stuff, get landing gear attached, get decals done, just start plugging through it all. So we're getting there. That's my point. I also have to do the struts still. These are the struts for the little wings. They are horribly molded and misshapen, but what I'm going to do is just kind of go through and pick the couple that are the nicest. They're also not very accurate looking at references. That one just broke. They have these big flared pieces on both ends, and looking at the real one, the pictures, they do not have the flared ends. I can actually pull the picture up for you right now. Again, this book, Wing Leader, amazing book. The references I've been able to pull from this for this build is amazing. So here we go. If you look at this exact picture right here, I'll get this. Here you go. So you can see it's got the little flared fairing at the bottom, which kind of matches with this little flared fitting at the bottom. But the top is just a little kind of bracket. So I don't need a flare at the top. So all I'm going to do is clean this up, get one of these ends good enough to be sitting on the wing, and then I'm just going to cut the other end to match where it should reach on the fuselage, and I'll squeeze it all in place. So I will use the misshapen molding to my advantage when I decide how I'm going to use them on the kit. So we're getting there. Again, it's January 1st, so beginning of a new year, past the Christmas holidays, past the Christmas break with the kids. So I should have a bit more free time to sit here and focus on this stuff. So that's the plan, get this stuff done. But yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. As I mentioned, I don't have any new kits. I do hopefully have at least one new one coming through in this new year. The ICM Hampton is due out. It's already out in Europe. I'm just waiting for it to hit the dock here in North America. I should be getting one of those pretty quickly when they come out. I'm over at Hobson there from Bill. So as soon as that comes out, I'll head over, drop my credit card, come home with one of those, probably start that pretty quickly on my next round. I really want to build that. Also still waiting on the Kinetic Tutor. I've now seen references to March, even though I promised it for Christmas. So we'll see. It's been like 2 years now. We've been waiting for this thing to come out. So we'll see. I don't know what else to say. But other than that, keep an eye on the channel. I still have some more content for my trips out to BC. Oh, I had to sneeze again. Yeah, I do have some more videos from my trip out to BC coming out, some more content from that. So stay tuned to see that. But yeah, I'm going to call it here. We are going to wrap this up. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you next month for another one of these updates.